Ooh, a quarter!
Talk about loaded. Packed with meat and cheese and loaded with value, IHOP's loaded country potatoes are served with eggs and pancakes.
Another quarter.
IHOP. Come hungry, leave happy.
Right about now, we could all use a pancake. And that burger. And that burrito. And IHOP's all-new melts. Yes, please. Wait. Or all-you-can-eat pancakes for $5.99? Well, I know where I'm headed. To all-you-can-eat my heart out.
All right, guys. Welcome to today's show. I want to get into the latest debacle, the latest story on former President Barack Obama visiting Stanford University, speaking on how big tech is becoming too powerful in America. Well, they are. Don't get me wrong about that. But let's get into a little bit more in depth of what he actually didn't say on his speech. More on this, guys. Don't touch the dial.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? It's time for the final countdown. The show starts in 10, 9, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's rock. Welcome to the Patriot Brief.
Understand, it's not necessary for people to believe this information in order to weaken democratic institutions. You just have to flood a country's public square with enough raw sewage. You just have to raise enough questions, spread enough dirt, plant enough conspiracy theorizing that citizens no longer know what to believe.
You know, guys, let me stop it right there. Folks, there's some danger behind this message, right? Some dangerous stuff that the former president is speaking at the Stanford University, which happened to be at the Cyber Policy Center of the university there. Obama, urgent warning about disinformation at Stanford University. Disinformation? How is it a warning? Let's talk about what we're really, or what we should be worrying about, right, in this country, right? We're big tech, you know, where they've become so powerful in this country. They truly have. They've gotten to a point right now, folks, where they will literally take over your ability to speak your mind on the internet. It happens every single day to millions of Americans that post something on their personal account, and then here comes the people from Mark Zuckerberg's Silicon Valley there in California, right to the mat there, checking every little thing of that conversation, making sure there's no disinformation. I mean, you know, we've clearly seen it throughout this pandemic. When people were posting about COVID, all of a sudden it became COVID misinformation, right? They still are, right? No one is allowed to post anything because they're either fact-checked, shadow banned, or completely kicked off their platforms, right? Seriously. Call that a danger to someone's privacy? I think, excuse me. Now, I want to bring in a clip here from a former chief security officer at Facebook, Alex Stamos, to discuss Barack Obama's speech at Stanford University on the dangers of unchecked online disinformation. Check this out, guys.
NBC News senior reporter Ben Collins has more. I'm also joined by Alex Stamos, former chief security officer at Facebook. He is now at Stanford University. Thank you for being with us. Alex, you know this industry clearly better than most. You were part of it. What was your reaction to the former president's speech?
So first off, we were extremely proud to be able to host President Obama at the Stanford Cyber Policy Center. And I'm very excited that he's getting involved with this, because I think his speech demonstrated a really smart read of the current situation, and I think serves as both a call to action for Congress and tech companies, as well as a bit of a corrective to some of the really simplistic ways people have thought about disinformation. He opened up talking about disinformation as a supply and demand problem. And he talked about how tech company product choices have absolute impact on supply. But he also, unlike most political elites, talked about the demand issues and the need to kind of reduce the desire of Americans to be lied to intentionally. And I think, he really did the reading. It's wonderful and unfortunate to think about back to a president who was this kind of deeply engaged on these kinds of difficult issues.
Yeah, deeply engaged. You said he was engaged. Let me say one thing here on the show. What the hell is wrong with people expressing their minds, expressing their thoughts, their opinions? What the hell is wrong with that? Why have we become a society where we're basically going to be dictate and say, oh, you're lying? Folks, are we grown-ass adults or children in grammar school? I mean, seriously, this is where our society has gone? This is where we've reached to a point of no return? Basically, the former president stating that Obama now calling for more regulatory oversight of social media giants. He wants them to step in more to screen and monitor people's activity on social media. Folks, now, this can go into several different things, right? In a democracy, right, it is the duty, and let me say this, it is the duty of the citizens to be educated and responsible for their vote, because every election, folks, has its aftermath. It can also have its own demise, too. There are outcomes for each election, and we're clearly seeing that after the last one in 2020, 2 years ago. Americans are basically failing their own democracy. And what do I mean by that? They're failing to be heard. They're failing to voice their opinions and speak up against big tech tyrants and political tyrants in that aspect. Now, here's for one example. And I'll say this, right? They're using technology as if it was a military basically an operation, so to speak. I'm going to try to use the words very loosely so you can understand this. Now, the nature and the reason why I'm going to say this, you're going to understand really, really quick, okay? The nature of military technology, computers, and handheld devices means ownership and use of overrides the reality of content, creating a society to the person's ability, right? Now, for instance, letting predators hide behind usernames is one of the biggest narratives, especially when you're allowed to publish online for free. Now, do I believe in censorship? Do I believe in monitoring? To an extent, I do. What I just mentioned right there. When you have sexual predators online that target young children, yes, I believe that the monitoring and the surveillance should be in play on those sick, demented individuals, without a doubt. But if you have somebody such as a Joe, an average Joe out there that's just posting something, nothing is dangerous about the post or this and that. They're just expressing their patriotic view, right? Why is it that the federal government and big tech giants such as Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook and Bezos' Twitter, right? Why do they have to step in line to be like the government's puppet buddy? Why do they have to invade our privacy as American citizens? Why? Please enlighten me. I'd love to know. I mean, seriously, in a society, for God's sakes, can't we all just get along and respect each other's opinion? No, we'll never get to a society like that. Because our society has become demented, radicalized, and unconstitutional in so many ways. We've seen that from the vaccines. We've seen that from forced mandates. We've seen that from laws that were literally overturned by previous administrations. The last 20 years, for sake. You can look at the Bush administration, the most corruption that I've ever seen in my lifetime. The Obama era, more corruption. Now we're facing more corruption at historic highs under this Biden administration. So is it said to say that we've all entered a new phase right before our very eyes? Yeah, pretty much. Pretty damn much, folks. So basically, what Barack Obama and the other political hackwicks there in mainstream is saying is that as liberals, they have the monopoly on mainstream media and social media companies to basically voice anything they want to tell you, hence truth narratives coming out of it. Any views opposing to what they say is true, and anything that you say is false. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, okay, yeah. So these political wigs have become pretty much like gods we have to obey by their every demand. Folks, is this a constitutional republic, or is this more of a dictating type of empire? Because we are seeing more dictating coming out of this society in America than we've never seen before in our lifetime. Now, here's one thing, right? Obama needs to do one thing right here. Give an updated speech on what's really going on with big tech. The censorship. Because half the crap that he said at that speech a couple days ago was very disinformed to the American public. Now, here's one question that a lot of people are probably asking, the same thing that I'm going to ask right here on the show. Should he keep what's left out of his dwindling credibility? Of what's left to it? I mean, we live in a society, in a country where there's more dictating on free speech than ever before. Ever before. And the half-wits on both sides, I'm not just going to discredit the Democrats, because the Republicans have a big share in this too. Both sides of the fence have half-wits. Ton of examples right here. From Liz Cheney, right? Mitt Romney, others. in that aspect. Now, Democrats seem to always have this hubristic notion that they know what's good for us and that they don't want us knowing any better. Pretty much. We're seeing that under Joe Biden right now. Let them keep believing that until November, right? Yeah. Right? November. What's coming up in November? The midterms, right around the corner, right? Now, for instance here, folks, I seen this article here that was posted not too long ago on YouTube through MSNBC. They love to post and launch a lot of radicalized videos on YouTube, which doesn't make sense. They're allowed to share that content, but a podcaster such as myself or other names in the business will post a video and will be labeled as misinformers, right, on social media or YouTube. We'll be labeled that. But here's a prime example, folks. I just spent roughly almost 10 minutes prior to this podcast episode. Thanks, producer Eric. I need water. Yeah. Thanks. I needed that. I spent 10 minutes scrolling through 1,000 plus comments. Almost, right? I'm kind of exaggerating here, right? But I did scroll through some comments. And I happened to come across some of them. Every single comment was a liberal, was a socialist, a commie, literally outlining every single thing that this administration and prior administration, Obama administration, has done great for this country. Okay. And then that famous question will come up. You know, when you go up to a liberal, right? A supporter of possibly Obama and Biden and maybe Hillary Clinton and the whole radicalized Democratic Party now, is what great did they do for our country? They never have a clear answer, folks. Never. They never have an answer. Another proposal coming out of this Democratic Party is that they're proposing that each American get one email, only one, kind of like a social security number, right? Or a home address. Usually, right? Everyone has one social security number and usually one home address. That's what they're proposing, folks. Part of the this new Green New Deal, probably, maybe. It could be in the works. You never know. From the nut jobs of AOC and the squad. Some of the crap that they probably propose. They can say whatever, whenever, wherever. Except like this. You can hold everyone accountable to what they say. And most importantly, keep foreign entities from entering or interfering in American media. Yeah. Okay. I agree with that last part. I don't agree with an American getting one email. But do I agree that every American should have at least one social security card number? Yeah. Home address? They can have more than one, right? Right, producer Eric? You think somebody should have more than one home address? I think so. Maybe they have a vacation home we don't know about, right? But folks, plain and simple, this is what our nation's facing. Corporate propaganda. Corporate propaganda. Sometimes you have to be careful what you wish for. We see that in the Supreme Court. But as per the Supreme Court, corporations, there we go. Corporations are people. Money is speech. Spend what you want. And no one needs to know who wrote you the check. Right? I mean, pretty much. Pretty much. But the stubborn agenda coming from this administration is that they'll always have their narratives. Always. They'll always be 2 steps ahead of the American people. Now, here's one example, and I'm going to give you this prime example because I want to plug in another video here with Barack Obama now speaking on a weaker democracy. You're going to want to hear this, folks. Very, very important stuff here on the Patriot Angle podcast. Be right back after these short words, guys. Don't go anywhere. Alrighty, guys. Welcome back to the Patriot Angle podcast. Today is April 24th, 2022. Wow. Month going by, slipping by, literally, almost into May. Welcome to the Patriot Brief, guys. Welcome. We're talking about the speech that former President Barack Obama had just laid out a few days ago at Stanford University. Now, I want to get into something very, very important. Maybe some of you didn't catch some of the comments that he had made at that speech, where basically he warns spread of disinformation is weakening democracy. Oh, you're going to want to listen to this. Check this out, guys. I mean, this is...
Who do you think?
Yeah. Something fierce. Thanks for that sound clip there, producer Eric. That's exactly what's about to go down. Obama literally warning of a weaker democracy? What? Now, we'll plug this in just a short little bit. But, like, some of the stuff that he says just is mindful. Mind-blowing, guys. Check out this crap that's coming out of the former president. Literally.
Democracy's weakening is the profound change that's taken place in how we communicate and consume information. We see that our new information ecosystem is turbocharging some of humanity's worst impulses.
NBC News senior reporter Ben Collins joins me now. Ben, nice to see you. Does Obama have any chance of breaking through the politics with this message? How is he trying to do that?
Well, I'll say nobody's been successful yet. But if you can frame this as less a political debate and more about what we're taking in, the information disorder that we have in this country, you might have a better chance. That's what he's trying to say here. And what he said, he basically laid this out as a problem of sensationalism on every side. This is a
yeah. Who? Ben Collins? Yeah, happened to be the senior reporter there from NBC News, a video that I just plugged into today's show. Labeling a problem? What's he labeling there, Ben Collins? What's the problem that he's labeling? First of all, the real problem that our society is facing as a nation is coming from radicalism from both sides. You're right about that. You're right about that. But what we're seeing right now is a political shift, so to speak. A huge political shift coming from a former administration of the Trump administration that was trying to reshape America in just his 4 years of presidency from the demise and the destruction that Barack Obama has created in his 8 years of his presidency. Now, fast forward now to 2022, we see another political shift in our political system, where you have a president by the name of Joseph Biden that is causing destruction on historic highs. We're seeing it every single day. We are seeing, the weakening democracy under these failed administrations. Administrations that should never have been elected in the first place. How they get the vote by the American people is on me. I've said it from time after time. You want to elect officials that's going to represent not only our society, but represent our democracy, keep it alive, keep it perishable, keep it flourishing as it once was a few hundred years ago under the leadership of Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln. What we see today, folks, is like I said, a radicalized society that loves to pinpoint on Americans for voicing their opinions and calling us disinformationists. How in the hell is that labeled like that? It's almost like we're going back to our grammar school selves in kindergarten and being labeled as someone that's being cruel or mean because we're picking on the nerd or the little puny peon in class, right? Is that where we have become as a society? Seriously, right? That's the question. So here's one thing, folks. I'll get into this here, okay? I'll ask this question, and you can put it on my social media, whether it's Instagram at Patriot_angle_unfiltered, or shoot me a comment on my Facebook page, the Patriot Angle Podcast. Or if you're a member of our blog section on the website, patriotanglepodcast.com, you can shoot me a comment there to this question I'm about to say on the show. What do algorithms care about most, facts or fictions? They definitely feed into our perceptions. Maybe, just maybe, folks, it would help to program in good fact checking before they make it out to the gate. And what do I mean by that? And I'll repeat that again, so maybe you didn't get the last part of the question there. Maybe it would help to program in good fact-checking before these independent fact-checkers that sometimes we don't understand who they are, where the hell they've come from, literally make it official there on social media that fact or that statement that you posted is incorrect. How the hell do they know? They're going off of a fucking opinion, not an actual fact. Because at the end of the day, it becomes more opinion versus opinion than actual fact versus a false narrative. Now, as I close it out here, I wanted to get into one last thing that the former president did mention, which I thought was very, very interesting. Not only do I agree with him, I don't agree with him on it. I just thought it was very, very, very interesting that he goes into saying more about this disinformation. That he actually has a new campaign that he's going to be using to aim to fight disinformation. Like, this is what he's really going after, folks. Literally. This is the whole agenda by the radical left. The whole agenda. Folks, if you don't think that the dangers in this country are bad, which they are, we are seeing extreme dangers beyond extreme dangers. You're in a rude awakening, folks. Check out this clip here I'm about to plug in before I conclude in this podcast episode of the Patriot Brief. Check this out, guys.
Welcome back to Yahoo Finance Live, everyone. Former President Barack Obama, very own, his keynote at Stanford University today addressed disinformation and challenges to democracy in the digital realm. Joining us now, we've got Yahoo Finance tech reporter Dan Halley with the details on Obama's next big initiative. Dan, good to have you here. So what was the message that Obama delivered, and how might this govern his time in the near future, too?
Yeah, this basically had to do with just the spread of disinformation, social media, the internet, things along those lines in general. And he really kind of focused in on what this means for democracy and how it's impacting democracy, what it's doing to democracy overall. And so he focused not on individual companies. He did mention Facebook. He did mention Twitter at certain points. But he pointed out that it's a much different world than when he was running. He had mentioned that when he originally ran, it was MySpace and Friendster were really the big social networks at that point in time. But, you know, he did have some comments, and I just want to read off what he had to say here about this. Essentially just going and saying that not all problems we are seeing now are an inevitable byproduct of this new technology, that being new social networks. They're also the result of very specific choices made by the companies that have come to dominate the internet generally, and social media platforms in particular, decisions that intentionally or not have made democracies more vulnerable. So really, you know, not naming names, but calling these companies out for the impact that they've had on democracies. And we've seen that, right? Nobody believes each other online anymore. Nobody wants to agree. Everybody wants to disagree. And, you know, Frances Haugen, the Facebook whistleblower, had specifically said, look, divisive content drives engagement. And that then is what they're able to sell ads against.
People still believe Barack Obama was not born in the United States, so he knows misinformation better than just about anyone we've ever seen as president. But does he offer solutions?
He's basically pointing to the fact that these companies need to kind of look back at their products and retool them.
Not government regulation was where I was getting. Does he suggest that?
I don't think he did quite yet. He's still speaking at the moment, but his main takeaway so far seemed to be that the companies need to go back and look at the products and perhaps not lean so heavily on the divisiveness of content. And, you know, it's not just him saying that. It's not just Frances Haugen saying that. Leaders in Europe have specifically pointed to the fact that they needed to change their message to their constituents to be more divisive as a result of the changes that Facebook and other social media platforms have made and the kind of engagement that they get, because they weren't getting engagement prior to that. So when they made the change to be more divisive, they were able to draw in more voters to their side. So, you know, I mean, it's something that's not just here, it's everywhere, and we're seeing more and more politicians speak out about it. Depends on which side of the aisle you fall on, though. Democrats want to see more regulation. Republicans say that they're stifling free speech, these platforms, by taking down disinformation. So it really depends.
And Dan, when you look at the speed at which some of this stuff is being posted, and you look at how sophisticated we're seeing things like deep fakes, it can be very difficult to try and tell what's disinformation from what's the real thing. How can some of these companies in real life actually try and keep up with some of these developments?
You know, part of it comes down to some of the algorithms, right, and how these companies post, or you see posts. Right. So originally, if you remember way back in, I guess, 2007 or something like that, Facebook wasn't the feed that you see now, where you see what's shared most, what's getting the most reactions, what has the most engagement. It was just a timeline feed. And you used to see the same thing with Twitter. Then we saw things like, resharing, retweeting, things.
Yeah, we've seen it all. I mean, the executives and the editors there at Yahoo Finance, they do make some good points, all right? They do make some good points, and they're actually giving some truth for once, unlike, these fake, media companies out there. Now, here's one thing here before I conclude in the episode here, right? And I depart from the episode and I say my goodbyes for today. But, here's one thing. Fighting free speech, folks, is not a good look for an ex-president such as Obama. Because half of what he said, not only in his campaign run for president, but his whole presidency, was against what he's actually saying. He never delivered the truth at all. He wasn't an advocate for free speech. He wasn't. Show me one clip that President Obama actually campaigned for fighting for free speech. And maybe I'll take that back. But he was never an advocate for it to begin with. I don't think any Democratic politician in modern times, in the last probably almost going on 25 years now, have been an advocate or a supporter towards free speech. None of them. And this is coming from the king of disinformation, Barack Obama, right? Which earned that title very, very proudly. I mean, I would think, right? He's the king of disinformation. Everything he says is a fucking lie. But folks, this is a push, a major political push for government-controlled speech. And in my eyes, very disturbing. Now, as I conclude in today's podcast, I'm going to say one thing, and I'll allow you to marinate it in your own views and thoughts. Let the people think amongst themselves. Let the people agree on their own terms. Let our opinions be loose, but yet heard. And let the people decide what's right for them. That's my closing, folks. I hope you liked today's Patriot Brief. I hope you learned something. Remember, folks, you can hear me on all major podcast platforms, such as Amazon Music and Spotify. We're also featured on Amazon's Alexa. Just say, "Hey Alexa, play the Patriot Angle podcast," and we'll pop up right up on that device. Guys, thanks very much for listening, and we will see you tomorrow evening for another episode of the Patriot Angle podcast.
Michael Gardner, a host like no other. Unfiltered. Raw. You just heard an episode of the Patriot Angle podcast. Remember to follow us on Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon Music, and Audible. Also streaming live on Twitch. Remember to follow and like us, guys, for unfiltered, uncensored, raw content. Also, please head over to www.patriotanglepodcast.com for all your exclusive Patriot Angle podcast content and material, as well as the merchandise website, www.patriotunfiltered.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.